Long be gone are the days when men used to be the sole breadwinners of the family. Globalization has brought a radical change in the status of women worldwide. However, there is a large influx of women in the mainstream workforce in India. And with that came sexual harassment at workplace. And that has assumed greater dimensions throughout. Although the law preventing sexual harassment at workplace has been in force since the 2013, there remains a lack of clarity on various aspects pertaining to the statute itself, including what constitutes sexual harassment, what are the obligations of the employer, is this act gender specific in nature. Many of us are not fully aware of the criminal consequences of sexual harassment and other such actions that lie. Just as it is said, any tool would be useless if the person operating it is unaware of the way it is to be used. Therefore, the objective of this recording is to serve as a ready reckoner for all the stakeholders and to re educate them on the law. For that, we have Advocate Pooja Sareen with us. She is a posh compliance and litigation expert who's been working on the same for a long time. Ma'am, we are happy to have you here. We'll be asking you some questions which are very pertinent towards our understanding of the Act. I hope you are ready to give us your wisdom and insight on the same.
Thank you so much to have invited me here today. I'm really honored and I look ahead to be answering all the relevant questions.
Yes. So, ma'am, the first question is this Act specifically reiterates a phrase called aggrieved women again and again. So, is this Act gender specific? And if not, how?
See, okay, so we go back to our constitution wherein rape again and again is there's an aggrieved women mentioned, but the rape is not gender specific. Exploitation, especially sexual exploitation, is never gender specific. It is always and always neutral to all the genders. So how could this act? Yes, I understand that the verbiage of act is such that it again and again re-emphasizes on aggrieved women, but the implementation and implication is definitely vast. And when we say it is vast, then the implementation is on the males also. While we say that quid pro quo is one of the components of this act, which says this for that, meaning swapping in simpler terms. And when it is swapping, meaning this for that, the females, especially in the corporate world, who are sitting at a level of a VP, who are sitting at as higher authorities or higher managers, and they have maybe some interns or trainees joining them, maybe some freshers joining them, there is a possibility that they exploit them. So this is not a gender specific act. Yes, aggrieved women is mentioned in there, but it states very, very clearly, it states that this is not a gender bias act. It is the implementation and implication of the same is vaster and it is for all the genders.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Going forward to the next question. So, ma'am, sexual harassment is a form of discrimination and it includes unwelcome attention of the sexual nature.
Right.
And, following up that with a question that we have had is a statement that many make. And it's a very simple act that an individual, does. So the statement is, well, I only had sent her a kissing emoji and she took it offensively. So, ma'am, would this act constitute sexual harassment? If so, then why? And if not, then why?
Well, the act very clearly states that any gesture which is of sexual nature, it could be any sexually colored remark, it could be any verbal, any suggestive gesture, it has to be considered as sexual exploitation. That is one bit of it. The other part of it states that if the recipient is how the recipient is receiving it to be, that's very, very important. That's very, very critical. So, for example, if there's a manager in an organization, there is one lady who is from a tier 2, maybe she's from a village, and the other one is very open. He calls babes to both of them, right? One takes an offense, the other doesn't take an offense. Now, this is not per their mindsets or how they've been brought up. Essentially, it is wrong to be catcalling females. There has to be a decorum. According to the code of conduct compliances also, other compliances also, in a workplace, there has to be any which way is a decorum, right? If you are, if you're playing a pornographic video, some people are comfortable with it, some are not comfortable with it, but any which way the conduct is any which way is wrong, right? So the kissing emoji, going back to the kissing emoji or anything which you think is not that sexual in nature, depends how the recipient is taking it to be. Maybe she takes an offense to it. I'll give another example, a very simple one. Maybe a male states or tells a female, you have pimples on your skin, right? And the female says that his comment had been sexually colored or sexually suggestive, right? The male says that this is derogatory in nature. That if I'm commenting on her skin, I'm commenting that how bad her skin is. But she says there is another two witness maybe who are supporting the female. They say that while stating or making such colored gestures, he had been looking at her, staring at her, ogling at her from top to bottom, from head to toe, and made such remarks, right? So witness played a role out here. And they said yes. And then the female also had gone correct. Wherein, if you look at the sanctity of the comment, it is not a very offensive or not a very serious comment in nature. So henceforth, depends how the recipient is taking, what the witnesses are saying for the same. But actually, in any of the workplace, one has limitations. Do not touch unnecessarily, do not hug unnecessarily, do not go vulgar, do not play pornographic music, item songs, or any such behavior which could trap you in the code of conduct compliances or the POSH compliances, because this is surely misconduct. The decorum of the office or any workplace needs to be maintained, any which ways, yeah?
Now there comes a question that is very, intriguing in my, opinion, that a client comes to a lawyer and asks them, we have a very small organization, per se, just 10 employees, and all of them happen to be male. So why do they have to constitute an IC at all? What is the need for it?
The need for it is very simple. Say they need to be constituting an IC or the internal complaint committee or internal committee as we say now. It is essential because the internal committee is the one which will ensure that the organization abides by the POSH compliances. Whether they're following, not following the POSH compliances, this is the duty of an IC. That's the constitutional behavior of an IC, that they will definitely ensure that the POSH compliances are in place or not. Now, this is a very generic, a very general questions asked by various different people. They say that we are only 8 employees, maybe we are only 10 employees. What is the need for us to be forming a POSH committee? Because all of us are males. But this act very specifically states that all workplaces, let it be government, private or public sector, the people who are coming to your office, who are visitors, who are your vendors, your shareholders, your stakeholders, your employees maybe, for example, per se, they are going outside any of the premises within the work hours, within the office shifts. That is also supposed to be your workplace. Say, for example, if you have an employee and he had gone out for having lunch, and at that particular point in time he has misbehaved with someone, or if she's a she employee and she's gone outside and somebody has misbehaved with her, then of course she can take action against that person, because these are all workplaces. We have to understand basically what exactly is a workplace. So the cab that you go in your office hours is your workplace, even outside Ola or outside Uber, because Say for example, Uber and Ola, why I have given this example is that the driver, while he drives it, it is completely their workplace. But if you're on a business travel, maybe you are on a business travel, that's your workplace. You are traveling and staying in some hotel. Now hotel is your workplace. Why? Because you've gone over there for to be doing some assignments or to be accomplishing some projects. So that's your workplace, right? So it's a very vast, definition altogether, wherein everything fixes up. So just saying that that we are all males does not work, because you do have a lot many females coming into your premises. You have a lot of, maybe your marketing executive, maybe marketing people, maybe sales team. They go out and meet with so many people. They interact, right? So your interaction cannot be only limited to males. It is obviously it is with females as well. There are too many people coming into your vicinity. So do you demarcate them as male or female? No. That is essential for all organizations, inconsiderate of gender, to have a posh IC committee. That is very, very important. They need to have that in place. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, ma'am, moving forward, the question that the next I have, the most important one, and one of the reasons why we're having this video itself recorded, is why is it important to educate an IC on POSH compliance? Now, these employees have been working on people's leaderships, team leaders, and HR managers for long now. So, what is the need that actually arises for such a video or such educational material to be out there for everybody?
It is essential for, okay, so while that POSH compliances, they came in 2013, but the act itself did not, the implementation of the act did not become stringent or stricter till 2017. In 2017, the government made it a mandate for everybody to be going through the and abiding by the POSH compliances. Now, after that, also what happened is that within the organization wanted to do, the organizations of, obviously they also wanted to launch or go with the POSH compliances. So what they had done is that from the employees, generic employees, they had made them a presiding member, maybe member. The concern is they could be very good at their work. They could be darn good at their technical inputs. They could be good at their deliverables, at their designation, at their work that they've been doing for long now. But then there is no training imparted to them, with the result that they don't even know how to look at a complaint. What is an inquiry? What is the difference between an inquiry and a complaint? How to handle a complaint? How many copies are going to be there of a complaint, right? And they get into all sorts of gossip mongering because they're not taught, they're not educated. They should be educated because this is a legal subject. So the need of their getting educated, their getting trained is really very serious. They should know when they're handling this role of a presiding officer, of a member, of an IC member or IC committee, they need to have a proper training as to how they are going to look at a complaint, how they're going to be tackling it, whether it is even a complaint or not a complaint, right? Whether it will fall under the category or the sense of HR, or is it something that they need to be taking care of? Whether it's a HR specific thing or they need to literally uh, lead that situation. So they don't know anything. With the result, too many things have happened. You know that too many organizations at a global level, they are defamed every now and then. They're in the newspapers. Their name flashes out and they're all in the newspapers. Let it be Google or let it be Genpact. They had been, I'm too sure if you have a habit of reading newspapers, and just 3 years back, there was a male VP level person, vice president of Genpact, an organization, who had committed suicide. Now, why did he has to commit suicide? He was a 35-year-old guy handling a team of 18 people under him and consistently working. He was a performer, he was working with the organization, he was very well reputed, but he had to commit suicide. Why? Because his wife and wife's best friend were also working in GE, And it clearly showed that there was mismanagement at the end of the IC. IC wasn't able to handle the complaint at all. And then there was gossip mongering and corridor talks, and all resulted in humiliation. And without even listening to both the parties, the complainant and the respondent, he was declared guilty. So these people then need to understand, the IC needs to understand that they are not judges. Even judges also don't prove anybody guilty offhand. They listen to, and they refer to the evidences, they refer to the complaint. But there, I don't think that even it is the fault of the IC also, because IC is not educated and IC is not given proper training. So how do you even expect the people who are just working as mere employees to be doing legal jobs? Neither do you involve any lawyers or attorneys in this process, because that's out of question. So you need to at least educate your employees so that they're able to handle the complaint nicely. And also one more thing is there, that the appeals, there are a lot many matters filed in these days against the posh complaints, because when they're not able to adjudicate or take a decision, a wise decision, then both the parties, either the complainant or the respondent, they have the courts open and they can reach out to the court. And that is why litigation is there. So what generally happens is, with the MNC specifically, and with the even the government sector also, they they really spend so much of money to be branding their name. And then in defamation, it is a negative or anti-branding which happens with them, with their own strange repercussions. So I guess there is a dire need, as soon as you make somebody a presiding officer, a member, you give this power to them. With that, or before that itself, the training also should be taken care of.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful and educational workshop that we've kind of held here. And I really hope that it's helpful for, everybody who watches it and understand the legality, the vast amount of principles that are present in the act, and actually try to further educate themselves in the understanding of the POSH Act. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.